I thought I'd get us started because I'm really excited to introduce Miry Whitehill to all of you, and I know we're going to want to have an opportunity for questions at the end. So I'm Ellen Rentz. I am the co-advisor of the Gender and Sexuality Studies sequence. I'm also a Berger Institute affiliate this year. And it's with those two hats that I've been able to bring Miry Whitehill to campus. So Miry Whitehill is the founder and CEO of Miry's List, a local SoCal organization that helps support recently arrived refugee families. They have helped hundreds and hundreds of families since it started. And it shouldn't come as a surprise that in 2017, she was featured in LA Magazine as one of 11 women who are making LA a better place. I learned about Miry's List from a friend. It's a very kind of Miry's List story. You hear about it and you get involved. A friend of mine had to get rid of a couch and found a way to donate it, and also told me about the new arrivals supper club. And my husband David and I went to one of these dinners, and it was just so incredible. A recently arrived Afghani family prepared this incredible meal. We got to meet all of them. I got to ask them about the different things that they'd made. Their children walked up to all of the tables and were so excited to talk to all of us. It was just really wonderful. And I met all of these really cool Miry's List supporters. So I urge you all to check out the website. It's miryslist.org. It's so easy to get involved, whether you just want to donate, something in your house that you're looking to get rid of, or you want to help a family set up their new kitchen, or you want to go to one of these new arrival supper club gatherings. It's just a fabulous, fabulous evening and a wonderful way to support your local Southern California community. So Miry started Miry's List. I'm sure you're going to talk about this, but it just happened, and she was the right person in the right place at the right time. And I'm really excited for you all to hear today about what it means to affect real social change in your local community, and what it means to just be on hand and ready to help. And in ways that might seem sort of insignificant. You got somebody a hot pot, and now they can do the kind of cooking that makes them feel at home. It's those small type of, those kind of small actions that really make a huge amount of social change. So without further ado, I give you Miry Whitehill, who's going to be talking to us about the founding of Miry's List and the support of new arrivals in SoCal. Thanks, Miry.
Hi guys, thank you so much for coming, and thanks for the awesome intro, Ellen. I am Miry. I am a stay-at-home mom. My kids are 5 and 2. And about 18 months ago, the strangest thing happened. A friend of mine called and said, I just met a family who moved to LA recently from Syria as refugees. And their baby, Muhammad Rafiq, is the same age as your baby, Sabo. They need a jumper for this baby because they don't have anywhere to put him. Can they have your jumper? Who here has kids? Raise your hand. Okay. So at the time, I had a 5-month-old, like a newborn basically, and a toddler, and she was asking for a jumperoo, which I call like the baby control center. Basically, you stick the baby in, and then the baby is surrounded by toys. And it's amazing because it's a place you can put your baby where they're safe and they're happy. But here's the the thing. They're not in your arms. And that is what we're all going for as parents. That's what we want for our kids. And so I I could relate to this mom's need of somewhere to put her baby. But I was like, I am not giving her my jumper. If I don't have my jumper, I will die. But I know a lot of moms. So I said, I'm on it. Let me ask the moms. The moms were this Facebook group that I'm in called Eagle Rock Moms. And I posted in there, I said, does anybody have a jumperoo that they're not using for this baby from Syria? And within 10 minutes, one of my neighbors who I had never met before posted that her son had just stopped using his and it was ready to be picked up. So that weekend, we went, me and my friend, she brought diapers and wipes and I brought this jumper. We went to meet this family and give them these supplies. And I met mom and dad, and they had twin girls, 5 years old, and this baby. And we set up the jumper, and we got the baby in there, and he didn't know what he was doing because it was his first time in a contraption like that. And we kind of all had this moment where we're all kind of surrounding the baby in the jumper and watching him discover, accidentally hitting something, and then a light went off and music played, and then he realized that his toes were touching the floor, and he starts to bounce, and then he starts to laugh, and then all of us were laughing, and it just kind of broke the ice, and that was the beginning of this, what turned into, meeting people who are now my dear friends and people that I consider my own family. We sat down on the floor, and we were, in the Arabic culture, you feed your guests no matter what. Like, you have to feed, you give them food and drink. And so we were eating cereal and bananas and drinking the most delicious tea in the world. That's what they had. And we didn't share a language. They spoke Arabic, I spoke English, and at some point, the awkwardness of not having a common language caught up to me, and I kind of snapped out of I'm really enjoying my time with this family, and I started really feeling how awkward this moment was, where we were having this kind of wordless conversation that was through eye contact and laughing and looking at the kids, and I needed to excuse myself, so I asked if I could use their bathroom. And I go into the bathroom, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and I'm talking to myself in my head, and I'm like, okay, this is so awkward. You just have to get through this one visit. We're gonna stay here one more hour. You're gonna get through it. It's so awkward not to. I can't even talk to them. What am I doing here? This is so awkward. And I didn't know it at that time, but what I know now is that awkwardness that I was feeling in that moment and during that visit, that is the awkwardness that all of the families that we serve live in all the time. That's their whole life, is that awkwardness. And so what I see now that I didn't see then was that by visiting them and sharing that awkwardness with them, we were taking a little bit of the pressure off of them. But it was all about me. I was just looking at myself in the mirror and talking to myself about how I'm gonna get through this experience. And then in the reflection of the mirror, I saw behind me a towel rack, a bar. And I was like, there's no towels on that bar. And I half expected it was like a ghost. I turned around and I thought they were gonna be there, but they weren't. There was no towels on the bar, and I was like, this is weird. And then I started snooping. And so I go into the shower and I look in there and I'm like, there's no shampoo or soap or bubble bath. And then I look over at the sink and there's no toothbrushes and toothpaste. And I'm like, what is going on here? The bathroom, there was no evidence of humans living. It looked like an empty apartment. I was like, a family of 5 has been living here for 3 weeks and there's not a messy bathroom? What is going on? And so that is the moment that my focus on the social awkwardness of the situation turned into, I have to figure out what's going on here and I have to solve this. Because it was very clear that they needed way more than a jumperoo. And that was the beginning of a domino effect. I called my friend, Luai, who speaks Arabic, and on FaceTime, he was our interpreter. And he convinced them to be real with me and to tell me what are the things that they need to fill their apartment so they could feel safe and they could take care of themselves and their kids. And we went room to room, drawer by drawer, cabinet by cabinet, and we made a list, just written down on a piece of paper like this. It was about 70 items, big things like furniture and small things like garbage bags, but just the things that this one family needed. I went home and I posted that list on my Facebook page. And over the next 2 weeks, my friends and neighbors and family donated every single item on that list. I was going over to their house every other day. I would bring my kids, and the kids would play, and we would go through donations, and I would show them, this one is dish soap, this one is body wash. They look the same if you don't read English. And we had this amazing bonding experience. And when we completed their list, I had all these questions floating around my mind, like, did this family fall through the cracks? Or are there more families like this? And that's when the mama bear instinct that kind of drove that first family's list turned into research and discovery about what does refugee resettlement look like in America. And I started calling around. I turned to Google. That's what anybody would do when they need to learn about a subject. I typed in Syrian refugee resettlement Los Angeles into Google, and I just started calling organizations that came up. And very quickly, I met caseworkers, and within an hour of phone calls, I had already been introduced to the next family. And what I didn't realize then that I know now is that every single caseworker who is responsible for refugee resettlement is responsible for between 200 and 300 people. And all of them need help. And that second family, we just repeated the model that worked. Meet family, make list, post list, fulfill list, meet family. At first it was one family a month. Then it was one family every 2 weeks. Around the seventh family, it stopped being sustainable for me to fill my car up with stuff and drive over to people's houses. So I remember I was like laying in bed one night and I was like, how do we, this is so working so well. People are so inspired, this way to help these families directly. It's obvious we're onto something here, but how do I make it sustainable? How do we do this for 70 families or 700 or 7,000? And then the answer to my question was waiting for me at the front door the next morning. It was my diapers delivery from Amazon. I was like, of course, Amazon. Why am I trying to figure out logistics when the logistics experts of the planet are right there? They have a wish list functionality, like a baby registry. Amazon keeps addresses private. So that's when we started making wish lists. Today, there are 257 Miry's List families that have recently resettled in California from Syria, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, and Yemen. That represents over 1,500 people. And we have wish lists created by our families with volunteers and translators of the things that they need to feel safe. And people from anywhere in the world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, can go onto our website and send a welcome gift that goes directly to the door of a resettling neighbor. And you can even write a gift message. And what we've done is we've created a mechanism for people like me and like a lot of the other people in this room that have been waiting for a way to help the families that we're hearing so much about on the news. And we hear a lot about refugees' lives before they get here, and then the story kind of trickles away after they arrive. And so what we do is we focus on everything that happens when the plane lands and beyond. And we tell stories about the strange and hilarious and sensitive and heartwarming moments that happen in the first hours, days, weeks, months, and years after arriving in the unknown and trying to start over. Now we are a nonprofit organization. I'm still a stay-at-home mom, I just don't stay at home. We have a staff of 7 paid employees who are all previous recipients of the program. So our entire family services department and our logistics and dispatch, who are responsible for getting big items like couches into families' homes when they've been sitting on the floor in the living room for weeks. All of them moved here less than 18 months ago. And this model of hiring from the population that we serve, it's very effective, to give employment opportunities to families that are just starting out here, but for the families that are arriving after them, they see someone who is just a couple months ahead of the game from them. And they represent this light at the end of the tunnel, because our families, when you first arrive here, there's this expectation of what resettling in America is going to be, and very, very quickly that expectation, that bubble bursts. And traditionally, the refugee experience continues far beyond the time that the plane lands. And at Miry's List, what we're trying to do is make sure that the refugee story ends when the plane lands, and that our families can join our community as new neighbors, as new arrivals, and have access to the support system that any of us and all of us need to survive, especially parents. We have 3 phases of our program. It's called Survive, Hive, and Thrive. And they're chronological, and the services that we provide are based on where on that spectrum each family is. And Survive is basically, you just arrived, you're jet lagged, you probably don't have permanent housing, maybe you're living in a motel room, getting them the things that they need in those moments so they can feel safe. And now, if I ask everyone in this room, what do you need to feel safe? Every single one of you would have your own answer. And so we have designed our program specifically around the idea of letting them tell us what they need, because that is the opposite of the refugee experience. If you're a refugee and you're waiting for resettlement in a camp, or you're internally displaced, you're not making decisions for yourself. You have to stand in line, take what you're given. You have to be quiet to stay safe. And so what we do is we ask them, what do you need? The next phase after Survive, it's once they get moved into a permanent apartment. It's called Hive. So imagine a swarm of bees and a beehive. We surround that family with the people, services, and things that they need. And people go onto our list, and you'll see everything on that list. It'll be diapers and wipes and formula, the very basics, and then you'll also see things like colored pencils and instruments. And people ask us oh, why is there a guitar on this list? Nobody needs a guitar to survive. And I'm ask any musician. Ask any guitarist, do you need a guitar to survive? Musicians without their instruments is like a fish with no water. And there is no system, refugee resettlement agency, that is going to be thinking about these things or providing those things. And so that's where we come in as neighbors. And we ask them what they need. I want to take some questions But before I do, I just want to tell you one thing about the language that we use. There's kind of this umbrella use of the word refugee to describe anyone that had to flee their country for war, violence, discrimination. And the problem that I noticed is that even when the families arrive here and they're resettled here, they're continued to be called refugees by the caseworkers, by the resettlement industry, by the media, by people in general. And what I've seen since meeting thousands of people that are experiencing resettlement is that when you call somebody a refugee after refuge has already been sought, it can be very confusing and disheartening for them. And so in our world, anyone that is here, and as soon as that plane lands, they are new arrivals. Our families are not refugees. Refugees are waiting to come, and our families are here. So I'm sharing that with you so you can just be aware of a way that we can talk about this population that can be uplifting to them in this stage of their life. So, thank you. Does anyone have any questions that I can answer for you? There's like a mic that is passed around.
I have a
And
mic
if you
here,
don't,
and
I
maybe while
can
people are
keep it.
thinking of a
Yeah.
question, I also wanted to introduce Kristi Andersen, who works with Claremont Canopy, which I understand is a kind of local arm of Miry's List.
Hi, I'm Kristi Andersen, and I'm partnered with Miry. About a year ago, I started getting involved with the new arrival population, just sort of grassroots, and we got in contact with Miry and the Supper Club and contracted our beloved Conjo family, and they did their first dinner, and since then the partnership has grown. And so locally, we've started Claremont Canopy, and it's myself and 4 other moms. I live just about a mile from here. I have 4 kids, but there are about 9 families we're servicing in the area. And so we definitely, if you want to get involved sort of on the ground, come and talk to me afterwards. Most of our families live in Pomona. They also live in Upland. We have a family in Claremont. They go to Claremont schools. They go to Claremont High School. And so we really want to get the student population involved in our organization and also working with Miry.
Thank you. Question?
Hi, Miry and Mary. Thanks for your talk. What have been some of the biggest obstacles you've faced, and how have you overcome them?
That's a big question. The biggest obstacle, I mean, in the early days of Miry's List, the obstacle was finding the way that I was going to fit this work into my life, because I was very busy already, and you know, from the moment I met that first family, I was just sure that this was going to be a part of my life moving forward. And so finding ways to make raising my kids work with raising a nonprofit organization was a big challenge. And the way I overcame that was just, I built an organization where everything we do is kid-friendly, from like family visits to like and English lessons, any kind of, anything we do is kid-friendly. Except for, we're doing a Valentine's Day dinner next week, and that's like our one not kid-friendly, because we were like, we're gonna invite people and like, don't bring your kids, because it's Valentine's Day. But that was very helpful, especially with like meeting new families, because kids tend to be this amazing icebreaker, because kids don't need to share a language to connect with one another. They kind of just like look at each other, they're like, oh, you're like the same size as me, let's play chase. And that can be really helpful when meeting someone new. And there are so many parts of running a nonprofit organization that have nothing to do with sitting on the floor and having a picnic with a stranger, which is like, that's what I love to do. That's when I'm in like my element. And there are like probably 5,000 other things that need to get done. And so the way that I've overcome that is by having this amazing team of superheroes that have stepped forward and reached out to apply their expertise to this organization. And I, like filing for a 501c3, I tried to do it. For weeks, I was trying to navigate LegalZoom and applying for a 501c3 on my own and registering as a nonprofit. And eventually, it was taking away the time that I wanted to be spent with families. And so I remember the night I made the decision that Miry's List will never be a real organization. It's going to be my volunteer thing because I can't do it. It's too much. And the next morning, I opened my email, and there was an email from a woman named Yin, and CC'd was a woman named Jade. And they said, "Hi, we're lawyers, and we went to law school together, and we've been buying stuff for Miry's List families through Facebook and your website, and we want to help you with whatever you need legally." And then Miry's List became a thing. It became a nonprofit, like the next day. So there's 3 of us and 6 kids between the 3 of us. So our first meeting was in an indoor playground. And we sat there with our laptops, and I handed over all of the paperwork and all of the legal elements to them. And, that's how we solved that problem. And now there are, so in addition to the 7 employees, there are 23 part and full-time volunteers that are doing actual jobs at Miry's List, like everyday jobs. Everything from like our legal team to, we have a CTO. This is another great story. Our CTO, his name is Phil, and back in October of 2016, like I had been doing this work for a few months, and he heard about us through Facebook. And I get this Facebook message, and he says, "My name's Phil. I'm an app developer. I want to help you with whatever you need to uplift Miry's List with technology." And I was like, I love this guy. Like, yes, let's do it. So I get on the phone with him, and we're talking about, what kind of app could help us do this work more efficiently and more productively. And he's like, "I'm on board. I want to help." And I'm like, "Cool. Do you want to be our CTO?" And he's like, "Sure." And we hang up the phone, and I'm like, "Oh, I probably should have looked him up online before but whatever. It's all good. I'm sure I liked him." And then I look him up on LinkedIn, and Phil is Phil Rogan, the principal of Bing at Microsoft. He runs Bing at Microsoft. And there is no way that in a million years I could ever afford him, and he will never take a dime for his role as CTO of Miry's List. And he is now building the Miry's List app that's going to streamline and automate 90% of our process and make it so we can scale what we're doing in California nationally. So everyone on the team has some kind of version of that story. And because I like to have picnics on the floor, I don't do anything else.
Hi, thanks for your time today. I had a question regarding the vision of your organization. So how does Miry's List draw the fine line between providing people with the resources they need versus empowering people with the capability set that they need to obtain the resources?
Right. Here's what I've learned about the difference between providing a helping hand versus enabling a dependent lifestyle. The families that we serve, every single one of them have a history of trauma. From the littlest baby to the oldest grandma, all of them are coming from survival mode. When you're in survival mode, that's not a choice. That is a biological reaction that all human beings do. All healthy human beings will go into survival mode when it's required. The refugee resettlement system is designed in a way where families are given the basic necessities, sometimes a lot less than that, because the idea is we don't want them to become too dependent on the community. We want them to stand on their own 2 feet. Well, what's the saying, like, you need, like, to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, you can only do it if you have the boots. And so the strategy that we take is we ask our families what they need to feel safe. Because somebody who is in, like, the psychology of I'm a refugee, they're not going to be independent no matter what. Because that is something that has to come from within. That drive, they have to be motivated. And if they're in survival mode, that motivation will never come. And I work really closely with caseworkers about this because, you know, the caseworkers will call me and be, I'm giving up. I can't deal with this this person. They won't. The family won't make a decision about where to live. I can't do it anymore. I'm going to write them off. I mean, legally she could never do that, but she's frustrated and she's venting to me. And you know, we'll do a visit with the family, and we'll talk to them about what's going on with them. And you know, people lash out when they're stressed, and they do things that they wouldn't do if they were thinking rationally. And so what we do is we provide the things that remind them that they're a person with choices. And you know, sometimes that is throwing a baby shower for a pregnant mom. Sometimes it's helping a dad go to the DMV and get the Arabic driving handbook so he can get his license. Sometimes it's like taking a mom to the mall and buying a new bra because she's been nursing a baby and she doesn't have a bra, and so she doesn't feel like a human being, and then her caseworker is like, you have to make decisions so you can be independent, and she's like, I am uncomfortable. And so that's what we do. We give with abundance, and our program is designed that through that receiving of kindness, they kind of graduate from the mindset of refugee who has to be told what to do and relying on a system to new neighbor who has something to give.
Other questions?
Thank you. Thank you for your talk. I was wondering, you've talked about it just a little bit right now, so you started the process for me, but can you say a little about how you might be connecting families to mental health services, medical services? A lot of them, as you mentioned, are coming with a wide range of trauma behind them, and how not just providing the material needs, but helping their kids cope and helping their kids assimilate and themselves into society. Like, do you connect with social services, or how do you provide some of that?
We do. So all refugees, anyone with refugee status qualifies for state benefits. So that is like welfare, which cash aid, food stamps, Medi-Cal, and Medi-Cal includes mental health services. And so we help our families understand what is available to them, because the state benefits program is difficult for anyone to understand. If you don't speak English and you're not from here and you don't understand how, raise your hand if you know how the health insurance system works. Exactly. Yeah. So we help our families, like it can be like the most simple way of like getting on the phone and calling their Medi-Cal caseworker and getting them set up with a doctor's appointment, and showing them how they can call the number on the card and make an appointment with their doctor and ask for a translator. These are life skills. Like, it's important. You need to know how to call your doctor. In addition, like sometimes Medi-Cal takes some time to go through, and so maybe for a few weeks, if the family has any kind of health problem, they'll just have to go to the emergency room, and that's not ideal if you're with little kids, or you don't want to go to the emergency room all the time. So a lot of amazing physicians, dentists, mental health workers have reached out to Miry's List and said, if you guys ever need help with your families, let us know. And so we've been able to kind of match those services that are needed with the physicians who have reached out as volunteers.
Just kind of a shout out to our local community. Tri-City Mental Health has helped a number of our family members pro bono. Pomona Valley, a couple of their Arabic-speaking doctors have seen our family members all pro bono, and there's a couple of dentists in Claremont that have donated services. So just sort of from the Claremont side, we've had a lot of generosity from the community.
Anybody else? Other questions coming up?
Thank you so much for your work and your extraordinary story. I'm wondering if there are certain lessons that you've learned or mistakes you've made that you've learned from that you would share with us. For example, you said that you don't use the word refugee. Is that something you had to learn along the way, mistake associated with having used that term, or something completely different, just mistakes that if you had understood the consequences, you might have done differently in building your program and scaling it to the extent that you have? Thank you.
That's such a good question. I could talk for the rest of the day about the mistakes that I've made. I'll tell you about one that was a big moment of learning for me. It was, I think, around the 11th Miry's List family. It was a Syrian family with 3 girls that had arrived maybe 3 weeks earlier. And I was collecting supplies for them in my neighborhood in Eagle Rock, and one day drove it all down. And one of my neighbors came over with this beautiful dollhouse. And it had all the furniture and beautiful hand-painted dolls with 3 little girls. And I was like, they are gonna love this. Oh my God, this is so precious. And I had so much excitement about the way those girls would play with this dollhouse. And I was like, they're gonna grow up with it. It's gonna be their favorite toy. This is the dream. And I'm so excited to be able to give them this gift. And so I went the next day to bring them the supplies, and we brought everything into the house, and we sat and we had coffee and tea, and we arranged that the next day I was gonna come, me and the mom were gonna go get our nails done. So I said bye, and I said, I'll see you tomorrow. So I came back the next day to pick up Mom, and as I'm walking into the apartment, I notice in the corner of my eye, I see the dumpster, and I see one of the pieces of furniture, and I walk over there, and I see the whole dollhouse is destroyed and is in the dumpster. And my heart just fell. I was so sad. I said, oh my God, how could they do this? This was so precious. They were gonna grow up with this toy. They were gonna love this. This was gonna be their favorite. And I said, okay, I'm going to take Mom we're going to get our hair done. I'm gonna come back to this. I didn't mention it. I picked her up. We went to the mall, got haircuts, came back, dropped her off, and that night I'm driving back to LA, and a lot of the processing that I do after meeting families is happening in the drive from their house back to my house, because it's usually a long drive. They tend not to live close to LA, and it hit me during that drive. I was like, how could I have not seen this when I brought them? This is a family that are just moved into a one-bedroom apartment. They're a family of 5. They've been living in a refugee camp. The baby was born in a refugee camp and learned to walk in a refugee camp. And then they come here, and a few weeks later, this lady shows up at their house with supplies and this dollhouse, this perfect dollhouse with perfect furniture and a perfect family that represents everything that they've never had. How could I have not seen it? That's when I realized that I have to leave all of my expectations about the way the services that we provide are received. I have to leave them to the side, because that dollhouse was not something those girls were excited about. They saw that dollhouse and they saw all of the life that they've never had, and it made them mad. And one of them smartly picked it up and threw it against the wall and broke it. And then the dad gathered it up and stuck it in the dumpster and told the girls, you'll never have to see that again. And it triggered them. And I totally got it. And once it clicked, it was just such a huge learning for me. And that has been really helpful throughout this entire process, and also for advising our volunteers who have had experiences where things didn't go exactly how they had hoped. And I remind them, we do this work. The gift is the giving. Like, we don't do it for any reaction or gratitude or an outcome. We do it because it's for us. And, that's what comes to mind.
I also wanted to introduce Mohammed, who's sitting to my left, and he's a senior majoring in PPE, but he's been translating Arabic. He's been translating into Arabic this entire time, and working with the family sitting to his left. So I just wanted to give you a shout out for doing that before passing the microphone to you.
Thank you. I'm not sure I was doing good enough of a job word for word, but it was great to meet both of them. I guess thank you so much for your talk. And my question is sort of on the logistical side, like how do you prioritize families' immediate needs through the list function? I don't really understand that too well. I imagine it has to have something to do with person-to-person case management, and that sort of being the human side of things. So I guess I'm also curious about how that'll develop once it is like on an app format, within an app format, and sort of national, where most of it's automated. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's that part is not quite the problem, but I'd just be interested to hear a little bit about the logistics and the actual system of providing these things. Thank you so much.
So we have a very duct taped together system that works. The app will eventually automate it, but for our Wishlist program, we have a family services team that's all previous recipients of Miry's List, and they are quite literally America's welcome wagon. They are the ones that are either on the phone or at the door with families that have just arrived, whether it's a motel room or a permanent apartment that has no beds or light bulbs or anything. And they sit down with them and they tell them, you're here, we're your family now, you have your people, what do you need to feel safe? And they're the ones that are creating the list in language with our families. And so we have family services department is divided by language. So we have Arabic and Farsi, and then our Farsi department speaks like 5 other languages that they speak in Afghanistan, like Urdu and Pashto. And once we create that list of the things that the families need, and it's very simple, it's a Google Drive doc, and it has the family's story, arrival date, the name of the resettlement agency, the caseworker. It has ages, genders, clothing size, shoe size for everyone in the family, and then one long list of what they need. For a family with 9 people, it can be hundreds of items long, because it's like everybody needs a pair of shoes. All the kids need backpacks. So then we take that list and we assign it to a task force called the List Makers. The list makers are all volunteers. There are 115 of them all over the world, and they are the personal shoppers on behalf of our families. And so they turn that spreadsheet into a shoppable Amazon wish list that the address is kept private, so the family's delivery information isn't in there for the world to see. And then we have a web team that tests each list, makes sure that it's functioning properly, and then puts it on our list page. So on our website, it's myryslist.org. The first link you see is See the Lists. On our list page, that's where we have photos or icons if the family doesn't allow us to use the photo, and bios for all of our families. And then users can just kind of scroll through, find a family that they want to help, click through, it goes directly to Amazon, and you can shop off of their list. And Amazon, like a wedding registry or a baby registry, it kind of automatically updates. So like if they've asked for 3 cases of size 4 diapers and somebody buys 1, it will say there's 2 remaining. And so people can purchase items directly for them. Now, that said, wish lists are not our wish lists. They're not for emergency items. So when we meet a family who's sleeping on the floor, or we meet a family that doesn't have enough formula for and they're running out and they need for tomorrow, that goes under our emergency supplies program. And so that's why we have a dispatch and logistics team that they actually do all this collection of supplies that people would need in an emergency way. So, that could be anything from like a refrigerator to, something small like a cell phone. And, you wouldn't necessarily think of a cell phone as an emergency item, but if you just moved across the world and you don't know anyone and you can't call home to let them know that you've arrived, the cell phone is an emergency. And that costs like $40 for a 1-month plan and a phone at Target. So it's like such a small cost for such a huge payoff for a family that they just want to let their family know that they're here. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Any other questions? We have a little more time.
Hi, thank you for your talk. I'm wondering, as your organization has expanded and gotten bigger, have the donations stayed local? And if not, or if so, how have you worked, what platforms have you used to increase the number of donations?
The relations? What do you mean?
As your donations?
Oh, donations.
Yeah.
It's like the relations are local.
Sure.
So you asked how have the donations stayed local?
Yeah, so as you've expanded to 250 families, are donations still coming from Southern California? Are they coming from all over? And what strategies have you used what's worked and what hasn't to increase the number of donations?
That's such a good question. So we have in-kind donations, that's, furniture and stuff, and that is all local. We're not going to be transporting beds and stuff to families in Northern California. But as far as monetary donations, for the most part, we exist because a lot of people have given us a small amount of money. Because we're a small organization, we have not had the time to apply for grants from big foundations yet. And so I would say 90+% of the funding for Miry's List comes from a lot of people that are giving small amounts per month. And that happens on our website, and our legal team has made it legal for us to do that, which is pretty awesome, because there's a lot of laws around solicitation of funds, particularly for nonprofits that I was completely unaware of, but now we know. And something that we've been doing since November that has been so successful, and I want to encourage everyone here to, if you're sitting there thinking, how can I help beyond purchasing an item for a family, how can I help the organization? We've been doing something called Friendsgiving, where basically we are encouraging the Miry's List community all over to host gatherings at their house and talk to their friends about the work that we do and raise money. And I actually went to one last weekend. It was a house concert by some amazing folk musicians in Santa Monica, and they invited their friends and their neighbors, and they were able to raise enough money to cover the cost for 2 families to be enrolled in our program for a year. And since we started Friendsgiving, we've raised $30,000 just from people hosting gatherings with their friends at their houses. So until we get the grant application ball rolling, that's probably going to be our biggest source of funding. If you want to do one of those, there's a website you can go to that's just give.miryslist.org, and it makes it really easy to host an event on your own or with a friend if you want to co-host. Yeah.
Well, we need to wrap it up, but I had one little question. What's a thing that everybody in the room could do, whether or not they had money to give? Is there something everybody in this room could do that would be a useful way to support Miry's List?
Yes. Okay. That's a great question too. A lot of great questions. Good job, guys. So we are, Miry's List was just nominated for something called CitizenE, and it's a $10,000 grant, and it's completely based on votes. And we're 200 votes shy from being in the lead right now. So if you don't have any money, but you want to support the organization, that is a really great way to do it. And it's actually pinned to our Facebook profile. We're Miry's List everywhere, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And you'll also see it in our Instagram profile. So it takes 2 minutes, just one vote. Don't vote for someone else, vote for me.
But that's a way you can actually
2 minutes, yeah.
have an impact, be part of the enterprise. I mean, the fact that you were here and you came to the talk, you've already enlisted yourself as part of the enterprise. But now, if you're needing to distract yourself this afternoon because you don't feel like doing your grading. Oh, wait, that's me. Go online, look at their Facebook page, and vote and help them get this major grant.
Yeah.
So please join me in thanking Miry for coming. Your work is just so tremendous, and it's been wonderful to hear about it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.